Margaret never married. She never had children. She rented her whole life and never owned a home. She worked as a librarian for 40 years. No promotions, no corner office, no seven-figure retirement account. By every measure our culture uses to define success, Margaret failed. And at 82 years old, she told me she's the happiest woman alive. Now, I know some of you watching are in your 50s and 60s, and you're carrying around a scorecard in your head, a list of things you were supposed to have done by now. The marriage that didn't last, the career that plateaued, the savings account that's not quite what the magazines said it should be. Today, you're going to discover why the entire game has been rigged from the start, and what actual happiness looks like when you stop playing by someone else's rules. Let me guess what's been happening. You scroll through social media and see people your age traveling the world, posting pictures from their beach houses, celebrating their grandchildren, and somewhere in your chest there's this quiet ache. Not jealousy exactly, more like doubt. Did I take a wrong turn somewhere? Did I waste my time? You might have had a divorce, or two. Maybe you're working longer than you planned because retirement just isn't financially possible yet. Maybe you never had kids and people, even strangers, feel entitled to ask why, as if you owe them an explanation. And here's the really insidious part. You've internalized it. You've started believing that happiness is something you earn by checking boxes. Marriage, check. House, check. Kids, check. Wealth, check. And if your boxes are empty or messy or complicated, well, then you must have done something wrong. But let me tell you something I've learned after decades of working with older adults and after meeting hundreds of people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s. The people with the cleanest scorecards are often the most miserable, and the people who failed by society's standards, they're the ones who figured out the secret. Let me show you what that secret is. Here's the first thing Margaret taught me. The definition of success you're measuring yourself against was written by someone who never met you, doesn't know your story, and probably wouldn't understand your life if they tried. Think about it. The American dream, home ownership, marriage, 2.5 kids, climbing the corporate ladder, that script was written in the 1950s, by advertisers, by economists, by a culture that needed people to consume, to conform, to compete. It was never based on what actually creates human fulfillment. It was based on what kept the economy humming. You know what Margaret told me she does every morning? She walks to the same cafe, orders the same coffee, and talks to the same people. She's known the barista for 11 years. They know each other's birthdays. When Margaret had pneumonia 2 winters ago, that barista checked on her every single day. She never achieved wealth, but she's rich in a way that matters more. Here's what you can do today. Write down 3 things you're measuring yourself against, things you think you should have accomplished by now. Next to each one, write whose voice you hear when you think that thought. Your mother's? A former colleague's? A TV commercial's? I'm willing to bet none of those voices are your own. Now, here's where this gets really interesting. Margaret didn't wake up at 82 and suddenly become happy. She practiced it every single day for decades. There's solid research behind this. A Harvard study that followed people for over 80 years, the longest study on happiness ever conducted, found that the quality of your relationships matters far more than your income, your status, or your achievements. But here's the kicker. Maintaining relationships is work. It's a daily choice. It's a skill. And Margaret? She treated happiness the same way. She told me about Tuesday nights. For 30 years, she's had the same book club. Some members have come and gone, but the tradition stayed. She doesn't love every book they pick. Sometimes she doesn't even finish them. But she shows up every Tuesday because the ritual matters. The consistency matters. The showing up matters. She doesn't have children to call her, but she has 4 women who would drop everything if she needed them. Here's your action. Identify one small, repeatable ritual you can commit to this week. Coffee with a friend every Thursday. A Saturday morning walk in the same park. A Sunday night phone call with someone who makes you laugh. Don't make it complicated. Make it consistent. Happiness lives in repetition, not in novelty. But most people get this next part completely backwards. This is the hardest one, and it's the one that separates people who age with joy from people who age with bitterness. Margaret never wanted children. Let that sit for a second. In a world that tells women their purpose is motherhood, she looked at that expectation and said, "No, that's not for me." The psychologist Carl Rogers talked about something called conditions of worth, the idea that we believe we're only valuable if we meet certain external standards. As long as you're chasing someone else's definition of a good life, you're running a race you'll never win, because the finish line isn't yours. Margaret told me there were years, decades even, when she wondered if she'd made a mistake. Every Mother's Day stung a little. Every time someone asked, "Do you have kids?" and she said no, she saw the pity in their eyes. But in her 70s, something shifted. She stopped defending her choices. She stopped explaining. She just lived. And that's when the happiness came. Here's what I want you to try. Think of one thing you've been doing, or trying to do, because you think you're supposed to. Maybe it's staying in touch with family members who drain you. Maybe it's pursuing a hobby everyone says you should enjoy. Maybe it's pretending to want something you genuinely don't. Give yourself permission to stop, just for 1 week. See how it feels. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds selfish. And honestly, most doctors won't tell you this next part. Let's be blunt. The people who call you selfish for prioritizing your own happiness, they benefit from your guilt. There's a whole body of research showing that chronic people-pleasing, living your life according to others' expectations, is linked to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and even physical illness. Your body keeps the score. When you ignore your own needs long enough, your health pays the price. Margaret worked at a library. She could have gone into administration, taken on more responsibility, earned more money. People told her she was wasting her potential. But she loved the quiet. She loved recommending books to kids. She loved the rhythm of shelving, the smell of paper, the predictability. She chose ease over ambition. And you know what? Her blood pressure at 82 is better than most 50-year-olds I know, because she's not carrying the weight of a life she never wanted. Today, practice saying this out loud. I'm allowed to want what I want. Say it in the mirror. Say it in your car. Say it until it stops feeling rebellious and starts feeling true. Okay, let's tackle the big myth head on. People hear a story like Margaret's and they think, well, that's fine for her, but I have responsibilities. I have people depending on me. I can't just do whatever I want. And you're right, you do have responsibilities. But here's the myth. Living according to your own values and meeting your responsibilities are not opposites. They're not in conflict. Margaret didn't abandon people. She didn't become a hermit. She showed up for her friends. She mentored younger librarians. She volunteered at a literacy program for 20 years. She just stopped doing things that drained her soul in order to impress people who didn't actually care about her. There's a massive difference between being selfish and having boundaries, between neglecting others and not neglecting yourself. You can honor your commitments and stop living for applause. Those two things can coexist. Here's what I want you to remember. You're not behind. You didn't miss the boat. You're not too old, too late, or too far gone to build a life that feels like yours. Margaret is 82. She has no regrets about the life she didn't live, because she's too busy living the one she has. And that's available to you, right now, today. The world will keep handing you scorecards. It will keep telling you what you should have done, who you should have been, what you're supposed to want next. But happiness, real, deep, sustained happiness, that only comes when you put the scorecard down and start paying attention to what actually lights you up. And it's never, ever too late to start. All right, here's what I want you to do. Pick one thing from this video, just one, and try it today. Maybe it's the ritual. Maybe it's the permission statement. Maybe it's just writing down whose voices are in your head. Then come down to the comments and tell me what you picked. I read every single one, and I want to hear your story. And if this one resonated, I think you're really going to love the video I'm putting up next. It's about the 3 things people regret most at the end of their lives and how to make sure you're not one of them. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one.